So in this question, we're ultimately asked to determine the differential of B with respect to T. And there's a bit of a hint given in that we're told that we should combine T into a single term. Now we can solve this with the product rule, but it's harder. Just a little bit of algebra to collect our T's into a single term ultimately makes this a lot easier. Now, I always like to simplify things as much as possible, and there's a lot of constant terms here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out my T's slightly from these constants just to make this clear. And then I'm going to rename my constants. So I've got QZ cubed epsilon f over 24 pi epsilon naught r, and I'm going to separate out that t term into that 1 over t that you see here. And I'm going to do the same thing for the next part. So I have 2 over epsilon r to the half, 1 over t to the half. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out these two constants just for the ease of me writing it. If I've got a lot of stuff to do, I want to make this as simple as possible. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this first constant I'm going to call C, and this second constant I'm going to call D. I could have called them anything I liked. But that means that I get to rewrite this statement in a much simpler form. C, 1 over T, D, 1 over T to the half. That's just me slightly rearranging this final term here. So now I can combine my terms with 1 over T. And if you recall, I've got powers here. And so my powers are multiplied, so I'm going to add. My terms are multiplied, so I'm going to add my powers. And so this means that I can rewrite this as CD 1 over T to the 3 over 2. But I am going to differentiate this ultimately. And so I want to write this in the form that makes it simplest for me to differentiate. And instead of me having this as a fraction, I'm going to rewrite my power as T to the minus 3 over 2, rather than 1 over T to the 3 over 2. Because in my mind, that makes it as simple as possible to differentiate. Now, if I'd wanted to just directly go to the answer for a statement of B with all of my T's combined into a single term, all I need to do is I need to write C and D here. And so I can write that B is equal to, if I rewrite out my C term, this is my QZ cubed epsilon F over 24 pi epsilon naught R, and my D term is 2 epsilon R to the half, and then that left me with just my T to the minus 3 over 2 term here. I could tidy it up a little bit further if I was so inclined. I could combine the R's, so I could write this as QZ cubed epsilon F over 24 pi epsilon naught. And if I'm going to take this R into this bracket, I'm going to square it, because ultimately what this bracket is doing is it's taking the square root. And so I'm going to have 2 epsilon R cubed to the half. I can take an R out of this, or an R squared, which when I take the square root becomes an R, which was what my term was before. And so there's various different perfectly correct ways that you can write this. There is just preference on how people write it. It's like writing code or even writing English. People have a preference over the words they use and the order that they sometimes use them in, so the grammar that they use with it. So that is my statement for B. Either one of these will work. So the next part of my question was to differentiate B with respect to the temperature, to just show that how that temperature varies for this term B. So here, this should be relatively simple. Now I have a single term. So if I determine dB by dt, I have my constants, and I'm going to write my constants in. And what I do when I'm differentiating a polynomial, I take down the old power. So this is minus 3 over 2 CD, my two constants, and then I take 1 off my power. So this is now minus 5/2. So again, if I just want to tidy this up and actually write out my my constants, I'm going to be able to do a little bit of cancelling with the numbers that I have in here. T to the minus 5/2. And so I have a 3 on the top, and so that will cancel out with this 24 to leave me with an 8, but then I've got a 2 and an 8, and so I can combine those to be 16. And so now if I just write out this in full, this is minus q z cubed epsilon f over 16 pi epsilon naught r, 2 over epsilon r to the half, t to the minus 5/2. And just to show that I can write this in a different way, just to show that, you know, there's various ways of expressing this value, I could also write it as combining my different things into this square root term, and combine my r's. And so an equally valid statement for this would be qz cubed epsilon f over 16 pi epsilon naught into 2 over epsilon r cubed, just using that result from above, and then t to the 5 all to the half. So again, there are various perfectly fine ways of determining your or writing your final answer, particularly when you've got a lot of algebra about. I hope this has helped. I'll probably see you in another video. Bye.